Hi folks, Tom Haven again. Today would be Thursday in January. I realized there was one other method to do a throw that I'd written about in my blog, but I thought I could do a demonstration using the rice method as well. I got the idea from this book. It's the Ni Hua Ching edition of the Book of Changes, or the I Ching. I was reading through this for a while this summer. A lot of the beginning pages are very, hard for me to understand. There's a lot of information, and it's hard for me to process a lot of that information. But because I already have a kind of a habit and a routine with the one, I know that it's useful to read, find some other resources. And in this book on page 209, and again it's the the Ni I Ching version, Book of Changes. Apparently he's got a school, Shrine of the Eternal Breath of Tao, College of Tao, Traditional Chinese Healing in Los Angeles. This was a 1990 copyright, I guess, second edition. Anyway, he recommends this other throw technique that I was writing about earlier in the year, the rice technique. And if you were to be fully authentic, I guess you would use the Cassia Tora seeds. He said he recommends using the Cassia Tora, but any type of small seed or short grain rice will do. Some of you know that I also make beer from time to time in my free time. So I thought malted barley might be a good substitute, because these are big kernels. I mean, first few times I did the rice throw, I found the rice kernels kind of hard to count. They all look so much alike. There's kind of a little different, added to the challenge of coming up with the numbers. So I wanted to think of a bigger kernel. And my wife thought of the popcorn kernel. That would work, right? They're bigger kernels. You need about 20, 25 of them in a bowl or on a plate. And instead I used malted barley. I also found when the first couple times I used malted barley that I wanted to go through and pick through the ones I wanted to use, because sometimes there's like half seeds and then you're not sure, does it count as, is it, you want your counting to be somewhat specific, and that's the idea, having the larger grain kernels. So the idea with the kernels is very similar to the marble technique. The marble would have been heads or tails if it were just green and white, or the glass bead, green and white. If that's all you had, green and white, it would be similar to the rice technique, because that's all you're doing is you're drawing heads and tails. If it's an odd number, it's heads. If it's an even number, it's tails. Real simple. Whatever number of kernels, heads or tail. Put it back, stir them up. I like to go over 6 kernels, because I feel that if you're grabbing too few, then you're trying to sort of guess and try to throw or skew the results, or it throws off the randomness. So try to get 7 or better when you're plucking, and you'll get a sense when you're doing your pluck. You want to call that 2, 4, 6, 8. So if I were to draw that for my accumulate my numbers, drawing from the bottom, 8 is tails, so it's a broken line. I can write the number 1 next to that. And this is my taking notes now. I'm not drawing it in big form as I was in some of the earlier videos, just because you're going to be drawing in your notes when you do it. So there's another pick, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. 9 is odd, so it's heads. Keep going. Count them out. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Heads again. All right, and this is sort of a available wherever you go. You usually can find small stones or kernels. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 again, heads. Seems like I keep drawing 9s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. And how many have I done? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. One more. How many did I get? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. So anything over 6, you can get numbers from. 11 is odds. Odds is a solid line. So kind of similar to getting the 9. They both are odd numbers. So then I got my symbol. I got 3 solid lines over solid, solid, broken. But, and again, this is the knee concept. This is Master Knee's idea with the what did we call those seeds again? The Cassiatora technique, or the rice technique. He says do it one more time. This time for only one line to change, and then don't even look at the second half. His idea is do it one more time just to get that specific line, and it has to be over 6. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 6, 8, 10, 11. So this time it's not just heads or tails, whether it's an odd or even number, but it's in terms of what line you're going to be looking at, see if there's a sort of a synchronicity or something that you're reading about that jumps out at you, that there may be something that you're going through. Again, it gets back to is there intent in some of the dialogue, some of the themes that come across? Is there or is it just kind of a way to think tank and soundboard and thrash a couple symbols and ideas in a random way? It's very intellectual. It engages your mind to think about it. This is the stuff you're going through. Anyway, with an 11, you would be counting the numbers above 6 as your sequence goes up. So 7 is 1, 8 is 2, 9 is 3, 10 is 4, 11 is 5. So 5 is the line we would say is where the fortune cookie is. So what I like to do is put +5 and then put a sort of a square around my picture. I'm not actually going to put a circle on the 5th line the way I did before, because according to Nee, he doesn't want you guys reading the second half of the reading. He feels that a better way of getting introduced, similar to with the coins, is he likes the Cassiatora seed method, because you're not dealing with that whole second half, which is some people is somewhat subjective, future, or whether this is the path that seems to be where you're headed. It's kind of murky business. This keeps you out of that. You're reading a sort of more of the present, and then you take one specific line. You're not going to end up with 3 or 5 different specific lines. You're going to end up with one fortune cookie. And so in this case, because I have all solids over solid, solid, broken, that's Shein over Kun, Shein over, sorry I'm mistaken, Sun, which is 44, Shein over Sun, and there's no second half, so we're not going to write the slash in the second number. It's just we're going to read about that chapter, 44, and it's that one line, that last one that I picked when I got 11, that gave me the 5. And again, I only use the first half of the Wilhelm edition. The second half goes more depth into certain ways, but this is the one I stick with. 44, it takes me that long to get there. And this one's called Coming to Meet, chapter 44. And what I'll do in my journal is I'll write in Coming to Meet. And line 5 is the fortune cookie. What I'll do with people is I'll say, look at the symbols. There's a noun and a verb meaning for each of the trigrams. So in this case, I have 3 solids over 2 solids and a broken. That's heaven over wind. What I'll have someone do is I'll say, all right, well, the image is heaven over wind. Does anything just jump out of you, or any image that comes to your mind, heaven over wind? and we'll turn right to the image, because if you skip past some of the initial, go right to the image, sure enough, it talks about heaven over wind, the parable or the dynamic or aspects of heaven over wind. And in this case, they're talking about the prince or king ruling and making issues from the distance, proclaiming them to the four corners of heaven. There's some religious symbolism as well, depending on what prince you're talking about. So it's like that gives you an idea, and you read that general chapter. But the specific line that was that the seventh time we drew our pinch of kernels gave us a specific line, and you go to the line in the fifth place. It's the line 5, and then you start talking about a melon here covered with leaves. It drops down from heaven, and so then you start reading. It's a parable of the melon dropping from heaven, and what is the relationship with the melon and leaves, and is there things similar to what you're going through? Talks that melon is sort of like a delicacy, but it doesn't last long. And this is a situation. A strong, well-poised person has to tolerate people who are less capable, inferior, so to speak. And there's a lot of terminologies that might sound loaded, like inferior, or you may even see some stuff with old relationships in families, and specifically gender relationships. And you can say, oh boy, some of it's a bit chauvinistic, but it's just sort of take it as a parable. Just sort of take the ideas of whatever's coming up, and make notes. And when you read it, then do a short phrase. Like for instance, for line 5, I would say melon dropping from heaven, which is good food, but doesn't have enduring qualities or something like that, or has to be kept maintained with certain care. So great food, but must be handled or something. Well, it must be handled well, I guess, this type of food. And then the general chapter would be the theme of coming to meet. I close the book. It's something about, let's get back there. Hey, here it is. So we talked about, we're going straight to the image. The heaven is over the wind. What does that mean? And we talked about the prince proclaiming messages. And if you read here, it talks about, it's a parable of a king issuing commands, but he's sort of doing it remotely. Heaven is far. He sets them in motion by means of the wind. The ruler is far away from his people, far from his people. He sets them in motion through commands and decrees, setting rulings out in a remote manner, but it still carries, his will is still carried out. That's the theme of that particular chapter. And then in the beginning of 44, you can read in other aspects of it, other details. You might say, well, geez, what's that have to do with me? Kings making remote. I don't know, that's what you're doing. You're just sort of thought thrashing. Okay, with food from heaven, how do you control it's good food? And then and then there's a king. So it's like, is there issuing these benedictions out, or is it coming in towards the king? There's a lot, you don't really know where it's going, but it's just sort of different ways to soundboard and thought thrash, I guess is what you'd call it. Anyway, Robbie, can you press that button again? I appreciate your time, and have a great day. Thanks.